So today, what I want to talk about to sort of close out our gorgeous summer camp day is to talk about my two books, but really, we're not going to talk about the books. We're going to talk about the book concepts. So The Brave Learner and Raising Critical Thinkers, because together, these really comprise my whole philosophy of education and, dare I say it, even parenting. There's a lot in there. And so what I want to do is sort of pull out some of the themes as sort of a call to arms, although really not arms, because I'm really all about kumbaya love, but really just a call to inspiration so that you go into August and September believing in yourself, believing in your homeschool, believing in your family, because I know you can do this. I know you can do it because I've done it. So when I started homeschooling, it felt very much like a journey that was an extension of those first 5 years of life. You know, we were still playing with Play-Doh. We were still going to the library. We were still tying the shoes. And even though I was adding in like phonics instruction or counting, it still felt very much like, yeah, I know how to live this life. I've already been living it. And then we started into first and second grade. And I was like, oh, shoot, I remember school. Maybe I need a bulletin board and things hanging on it and a dedicated desk and special number 2 pencils. And maybe we need workbooks. And so I pivoted from what had been a very natural learning environment to like waking up on time and getting out the workbooks and using the number 2 pencils. And I don't know, that lasted a couple of weeks. Till rebellion ensued and they wanted to go back to building with Lego and counting cups of sugar to make cookies and muffins. And of course, I was consulting books and consulting curriculum. And during those early years, I started to realize that there was a natural cadence to learning that was possible at home, that was not possible at school. It's not to say school doesn't deliver a product and successfully create learners. Look at me. I went to public school. I had a great experience. What I am saying is the home is a different environment. And we're going to look at that now as the core foundational difference between the way you might remember education and the possibilities of what you can offer your kids now. And just know everything I share in the following webinar is the underlying bedrock philosophy of Brave Writer. Every class we design, every product we write, every consultation we give in Brave Learner Home, all of it comes from these principles. So I want you to have a really strong sense of what they are, because if you align with them, you will feel very at home in each of those other spaces. So without further ado, let's get started. So the name of this talk is Brave Learners and Critical Thinkers, mostly for convenience. We're just going to talk about the underlying philosophy of education that can bring about the best homeschool that you can imagine. Which of these two pictures is a home? Is A a home or is B a home? You're all A students. The house you are looking at, that's my house. I took this picture this morning. I am in the little building over the garage right now. Hello, everybody. Okay, so that is a home. You've easily determined that that is a home and the other building is not. Now I want to ask you to take this quiz again. Which one of these two is a school, A or B? Ready, go. Both. Wow, you guys are just really not good at this. No, these are not both schools. Nope. A is a school. In fact, I gave you a big clue. It says Lakota West High School on it. And so A is absolutely the school. No, you know what B is? B is a home. It's a house. It is not a school. In fact, it is so not a school. I've never had anyone come here thinking that they were at school. In fact, when they arrive, they actually think they're at a home. So I don't know. I'm a little worried about you guys being home educators because like this seemed like an easy question. Okay. I'm just teasing you. Yeah, it really is a home and it really isn't a school. And I want us to start there because it's really important for you to understand how much the house you live in is not a school, so that you can create the groundwork for natural learning. Okay, so yeah, I tricked you a little because homeschoolers always think, oh, well, my house is a school, home school. I would like to rebrand it as a home. Okay, all right, so let's keep going. Here's the difference between a school and a home. Let's start with the properties of a school. First of all, they're on bell schedules, like, to go to recess. Somebody rings what sounds like a fire alarm in my school. At a high school, they might just have one of those like electronic sounding dings to indicate moving from one class to another. But pretty much the bell schedule rules all. You can't say to your teacher, you know what, I'm really enjoying this class. I'd rather not go from English to math right now. It's like, nope, the bell says you have to. There's a teacher, and that teacher definitely in charge. They stand in front of the room. They're usually taller than everybody in the room until you get to high school. They are clearly the authority. In many schools, still to this day, you sit in a stiff chair and desk. And actually, even in schools that include like couches and armchairs, you have to get permission to use those things or do it under the teacher's direction. It's not like in the middle of a lecture, you can just get up and go take a nap on the couch. You actually have to sit in those chairs using those desks unless otherwise directed. Learning and breaks are allocated. There are times to play and times to learn, and never the twain shall meet. How dare you want to keep learning when it's time for a break? How dare you not want to come back to learn while you're still on break? The right answers in a class apply to everyone. Have you ever been in school where they give you a test and it's multiple choice, and at the end, there's no answer key? Each person just has to justify the choice they made? Yeah, me either. No, there's an answer key, and the teacher holds all 30 students accountable to the answers she pre-selected or he pre-selected. In other words, all 30 kids, regardless of background, identity, experiences, understanding, aptitude, those answers apply to one and all, and you are not free to disagree or argue. We have been conditioned to believe that one right answer applies to everyone. The academic assessment is not conducted by the learner. It's conducted by the instructor, and the instructor decides. It takes a very cheeky parent to go in and say, I disagree with your grade, and hope to overturn it, right? Finally, in school, all finished products are what get evaluated. Your teacher is not sitting in the house saying, oh, I see how hard you're working. I'll give you a little better grade for effort. They're also not seeing how lazy you were and how you scraped it together at the last minute. If it looks good, the teacher might still give you an A. And lastly, you need a hall pass to pee. I mean, if you want to pee, or let's say you're a teenage girl and you need to take care of feminine hygiene, you have to actually raise your hand, get a special pass, out yourself to the classroom. It's kind of uncomfortable. Know what I mean? So this is school. Do these apply at home? I think not. Here's what home is like. There isn't a schedule. Oh, wait a minute. How many of you, the second I said that, said, that's not true, I have a schedule? A lot of times, especially when I first gave this talk, people were like, I have a schedule. My children are doing homeschool by 8:30 in the morning. Here's how I know that at home, you don't really have a schedule. Because when you're in the middle of the math lesson and your spouse texts you a message saying you need to call the bank and move some money, or sends you a message asking you to go find a document, you drop everything. You can do that at home. If a teacher is teaching at school, their spouse cannot reach them while they're in the class. They cannot take a text message while they're speaking to their 30 students. Home is flexible automatically. It does not obey your schedule, even if you set up a routine. When you're at home, you get to be comfortable. You can wear whatever clothes you want. You can tuck your feet under you in the chair. Back when I was in school, I always sat like this. I don't know if you can see me, but I sat like this with my feet under because I was short and my teacher did not let me do it. She was like, no, I'm sorry. You do not have good behavior in class. At home, I always sit with my feet up like I am right now, cross-legged on my high top chair. At home, you can think for yourself. You can actually go ungraded on your thoughts. You can make a case for why you think something is rather than just being evaluated and left to wonder why you don't understand. If you fail on understanding, there is room for conversation. You can attend to your personal needs as you have them. Let's say you're hungry, you make a snack. Let's say you're thirsty, you get a glass of water. You can eat and pee whenever you want. Your role as a home educator is to observe, not to evaluate. And it's your constant observation that enables you to know your child well enough to tailor their education, right? You are paying attention to all the micro inclinations and thoughts and comments so that their education matches who they are, not a school system. And finally, homeschooling, living at home, is about process, not product. Imagine if when you had this little baby who was becoming a toddler, learning to walk, all you cared about was the day that child walked and you never held their hand, didn't give them props, didn't let them sit in a stroller once they learned how to walk. Like, think of how many kids are walkers and we're still carrying them around in Target, or we're putting them in a shopping cart, or they're sitting in a stroller the whole time that we're at Disneyland. We don't say, well, now that you know how to walk, I don't ever want to have to pick you up again, because children are in a process and the goal isn't the goal. The goal isn't the goal. School treats the goal like the goal. The goal of all these educational tools is equipping a person to be responsive to the demands of life. School is equipping kids to be responsive to the demands of their life. The goal is not getting into college. College is just part of that story. And when we're at home, we're more aware of that than when we're in the school system. But here's the thing. I had a fantasy, maybe you did too. I thought once my, schedule with workbooks failed, that I could just point my kids in the direction of learning. I could get them a math wrap, throw them in a beanbag chair, put them in a sunny window and say, okay, master trigonometry. Have any of you got that fantasy going in your heads, that there must be a pool of light, a comfortable chair, and a tool that will make them so fall in love with learning? All you have to do is sit back and watch. Anybody have that sort of weird natural learning, unschooling fantasy? I mean, sometimes when you talk to people, that's kind of how it comes across. Like, maybe you're doing it wrong if your child does the math wrap in 2 seconds and then is bored again and wandering your house like an aimless nomad, right? It's not how it works. It came to a screeching halt in my life, so I will save you making that mess in yours. We've got to declutter the fantasy of education. So we've detected already, schooling is not reliable. All of us have gaps, right? All of us. I did not do well in math and science in school, and I am still learning. I did not understand that the multiplication tables was a shortcut to addition till I was teaching Noah in 4th grade. I was in my 30s. So yeah, even with a great public education, I had holes. We also know that unschooling is not magical. We don't just point our kids in the direction of education and then take our hands off and hope that they survive. There's a certain combination of your effort and theirs that creates the kind of learning that leads to a lifetime of education. The goal is to learn bravely and to think critically. And we're going to do that together today. Imagine a form of education that does not try to change the child or transform it into an adult, but rather provides a place where the child can flourish as a child. When we're talking about home education, then, resist the temptation to compare yourself to the academic classroom standard that you may have in your memory. That is a system, and it works well for what it is, but it will not serve you at home. The education that you are looking to create at home is one that provides a place where the child can flourish, not as an adult in training, but as an actual child. In other words, they get to bring all their little quirkiness, their impatience, their need to get a snack, their resistance, their boredom, and their joy with them. And we're going to value it and use it towards learning. Here's the conundrum then. The home educator says, I just want a happy learner. Have you ever heard parents, we say to parents, what did you want for your child? I just want them to be happy, right? Like that's the most common comment that an adult makes about their children. Of course, we already know happiness can't be the goal. Everybody goes through a huge variety of experiences and feelings and tragedies. So is there a better goal than just being a happy learner? What a home educator usually means when they say a happy learner is, I want a cooperative student. Happy in this frame means cooperation with my agenda. Who knows what I mean by that? Cooperation with my agenda. Here's what parents say. I want my child to love learning. But what they really mean is I want my child to love what I teach. That is what's cooperative. We don't want complainers. That's right. We want someone to just say, oh, you put learning on a platter for me. I'm so grateful to you for doing it. But here's the truth about kids. They love to learn. They don't have a difficult time learning. They love it. They can't stop doing it. In fact, when they don't love what you're teaching, it's because they're busy learning something else. Let that sink in. You're over there, right? Trying to teach them math. And they're like, wait, I'm beating a level on this online computer game. Wait, I'm finishing my Lego build. Wait, I'm dressing my American Girl doll in her pioneer outfit. Wait, I'm showing the dog how to stay seated, right? They're learning. And you're like, let me take you away from learning and be a happy cooperative student with what I want you to learn right now, what I'm teaching you. Here's what kids want. Kids say, I just want to have fun. What they actually mean when we hear the word fun, we're like, well, that can't be good. I mean, fun means they're not learning. Fun means they're just entertaining themselves, right? But what they really mean by fun is they want to care. They want to care about multiplication tables the way they care about building a Minecraft world. They want to care about spelling the way that they care about setting the table for poetry tea time. Caring is fun. And I don't know if you've noticed, sometimes when you really care, you're not having fun. Let me just give you an example of that. When you are trying to win a game, let's say it's a board game, and your older brother always beats you and you're the younger sister, you might love playing this board game, but you look miserable because you keep losing. They're having fun because they care. They're learning because they're invested. When kids care, they're having fun, even if they look miserable. I mean, you've seen a kid lose when he's trying to beat a level in a game. They might punch a fist through the wall. They might get surly. And then we say, oh no, I think you're addicted. Maybe they just care. Maybe they are so invested in building that skill. It's disheartening to not have achieved it yet. In that moment, reframe what you see, make them a snack, rub their shoulders and say, wow, you care a lot about learning what it takes to beat that level. I'm so impressed with your dedication. It can be hard when all that work doesn't pay off. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. Here's what the brain research says about caring. Real learning connotes use. If something isn't going to be immediately used or applied in some manner, it won't get learned. So one of the reasons your kids resist what you teach and say they're not having fun is they cannot imagine in any universe where this information would be valuable to them. They can't picture using it. That's why when we're teaching kids, when we're creating an environment for learning, we want them to understand how what they're learning correlates to what they're doing today, not some career after college, but like today. I remember when we were starting to do fractions in my family with my young kids, I started making scones where we would divide them into fractions and name the fractions, fractional parts of the scone recipe. We started quilting. We did things with fractions related to fractional inches, like measurements, because I wanted them to see that everything we were talking about existed out here. It wasn't trapped on a worksheet. Should you ever use a worksheet? Sure. Sometimes worksheets are super efficient and effective, but worksheets alone are pointless. Your kids will not retain what they learn. How many of your kids have memorized a spelling list, gotten all the words right, and then the next time they go to write, they actually misspell one of those words? Aren't you like, they know how to spell? Actually, they don't. They know how to pass a spelling test, but they haven't internalized the value of that spelling to the level of automaticity when they're writing. That spelling doesn't live where their original thought brain lives. It lives in their math brain that knows how to pass the test. This is why real learning connotes use. It's one of the reasons that we teach punctuation, spelling, and literary devices using books, using literature, because that mimics our natural speech patterns and it helps hook up the hand to the brain so that when they do reach for a punctuation mark, they will have learned it in context for a real use. Our goal then is not to simply build a list of skills that they must master and be certain they've obtained. We are trying to build intimacy in learning, intimacy over certainty. Intimacy means that you know more of the subject with more of yourself. So I want you to think for a minute when we talk about intimacy, let's say in a romantic relationship. It starts out with a coffee date. It moves into an evening date. It becomes spending the day together going, kayaking and going to a movie and exchanging Spotify playlists and then talking about books you read and then watching a play together and then meeting each other's families. And then over time, you eventually incorporate some romantic interaction between both of you. I'm not going to name it because your kids might be watching, right? Intimacy is the slow comfort and familiarity with the unknown through more and more of yourself being at risk. Your body, your experiences, your skills, your story, and your identity. What's missing in so many school contexts is the opportunity for the full person to show up. So we aren't intimate with subjects, we're just building certainties. This must be true, it was on the test. This must be right because that's what the teacher said. This must be the best interpretation of history because I'm being quizzed on a chapter in my history book. That's not intimacy. Intimacy is putting a little bit of yourself at risk while you are developing a relationship with that subject area. It comes from your identity. Your identity is what makes you you. It's that part of you that interacts with math, that interacts with spelling, that interacts with literature. Your identity literally shapes how you will be related to every subject under the sun. It's impossible to separate them, and yet it's so often overlooked when we are in a learning environment. Let me give you an example of how identity impacts education. This comes from my book, Raising Critical Thinkers. So if you like what you're hearing here, you're going to really like that book. It will help you a lot. So let's move back to school now for a moment and think about multiple choice tests. I want you to look at this picture and read this test. Which unit of measure would you use to measure this? And the this is referring to this, what you see on the screen. So this was an actual quiz question that one of our staff members encountered with her son when he was in 4th grade. The correct answer is supposed to be A, but he picked B. And his teacher told him it was wrong, and he argued that he was not wrong. And it led to meeting with the principal of the school and the parents and the child. And when the child was asked why he picked B, he said because he thought it was supposed to measure the illustration of the tree on the test. Yet most students took that tree to represent a tree out in the forest, even though there is no explanation here that says we're talking about a tree in the forest. So first of all, that child is bringing a perceptual skill to analysis that is different than the assumptions everyone else in the class had to make. Everyone else had to say, what does the teacher want me to guess? What does the teacher want me to assume is true? Not what does this actually ask me? Do you notice already how much we become reliant on authorities and guessing their imagination rather than asking a legitimate question in front of us? But here's the thing that I noticed when I saw this question. What if this were a tree out in the forest? How is it wrong to measure it in centimeters? It's not. It's a unit of length, centimeters, and so are feet. And those units of length are both capable of measuring a tree, no matter how tall it is. Secondly, what if your family kept bonsai? Even if you thought this represented a real tree, might you immediately picture a very small, short tree that would be better measured with centimeters? And that's the problem with multiple choice tests, is that they are asking us to guess what is in the imagination of the test creator, because there's only one right answer. And what if we were measuring like the rate that carpenter ants were climbing a tree? We would use centimeters. So there are absolutely reasons to use centimeters for trees that are out in the forest and bonsai and the drawing on the page. Now, kilometers and quarts are not units of length. And actually, this question should say, which unit of length would you use? If we say which unit of measure, I mean, maybe there is a way to put a tree in a blender and measure it in quarts. I don't know, but that's something to consider. So let's do this one now. Pick the adjective that describes this image. I want to hear what you all think. What else could you put in? Kilometers could be used too. Thank you, Desi. Thank you. Okay, so the adjective that defines this image. So obviously, if we're going stereotypical, because by the way, just a little cheat code for multiple choice tests, almost always they're going for the most stereotypical, obvious answer. Because why? Timed pressure. You're not supposed to think deeply. This is supposed to be automatic, like a knee-jerk reaction. Like it must be hot because it's an iron and irons are hot. But of course, many of you noticed that it's not plugged in. So can we know if it's hot? I mean, maybe if someone just unplugged it, it's still hot, but we don't know that. It's more likely that an unplugged iron is cold. But what about letter C? Iron could be an adjective. And if that iron is made out of iron, maybe that's also correct. And blue, well, this image is white. But what if you had a blue iron at home? Might you just automatically supply blue, thinking about your own iron and imagining this represents an iron that you own? There are so many possibilities here, and yet only one right answer. In fact, it's my contention that most of us are in multiple choice madness when we're on social media. We actually believe that if we just assert a fact that we know from an authority, everyone will fall in line and say that must be the right answer. And the reason I contend is because of multiple choice and regular short answer testing that we've been dogged with for all of our educations. We are used to one answer sourced by an authority being true for everyone in the room. And we got on social media with the timed pressure of scrolling, very small comment boxes. And we thought, well, all I have to do is cite my authority and state my fact, and everyone will fall in line. How did that work out? How did that work out? Are you all finding that everybody is falling in line when someone asserts a fact on social media? Do the commenters all say, oh, thank you for clarifying about that information. We will set aside our mistaken assumptions and agree with you now. Yeah, it never happens. Because why? Our identities, our experiences, our level of intimacy and expertise with a subject governs what we believe to be true. Wouldn't it be amazing if the goal of our home educations was to raise self-aware thinkers who understood those dynamics about themselves, who actually were being raised to think well and to be conscious of their own subjectivity while they're learning? So take a look at this picture with me. There are 3 pictures. They have a number 1, 2, and 3. And in the chat, I would like you to put down which one of these kids is engaged in what we might call real writing. Ready, set, go. 1, 2, or 3. All. 1, 3, all. 1. Nobody's, no 2s. Oh, there's a 2. Okay, you guys are on to me now. You're starting to catch on to how these tricks work. Okay. You are exactly right. It's a trick question. All 3 are real writing, but let's go back for a minute. The first one shows a girl with a cute hat, and she's got a pen with things dangling off it. She's wearing pink Converse with, a heart on the side that's a rainbow. She's sitting in a tire swing. Doesn't she look like what you would think Brave Writer thinks writing is? That it's somehow this unschooly natural process outdoors in the middle of winter, right? Okay, now let's look at number 2. Look at this very, very devoted child. She is going to copy her copy work from that note card. Her eyes are clearly focused. She looks relaxed and attentive. She's doing a good job. And now look at my miserable daughter in number 3. She is pure misery. She's like, are you serious, Mom? Quit taking my picture. And also, I don't want to do this homework, right? Like she does not look happy to be writing. All 3 are real writing. But here's the difference. What matters is not how the activity looks, but how the activity feels. So going back again, number 1 and number 2 are equally valid and beautiful. You don't have to get a tire swing in order to be good at doing home education. I mean, get one, they're great, but you don't have to have one. That girl in number 2 is invested. Somehow her mother has achieved that goal with their daughter. I, on the other hand, have a little curmudgeon on my hands. And that is information for me. If my child is showing me that the activity feels miserable, it is time to pivot. Our goal as homeschoolers is to combine happiness with achievement. That is the holy grail. That is the intersection of outcomes we're all going for. Unfortunately, some of us will focus exclusively on happiness and the others will focus on achievement. And then at the end, there's no intersection of outcomes. We need both. We want both. In fact, truth be told, your children want both. They want to feel competent to meet any challenge in their adulthood. How do we get there then? We go through magic doors. We go through magic doors. There is a portal for your kids that is going to help them discover the value of any subject under the sun. I like to say that everything can teach anything and anything can teach everything. Let's take a look at what I call a continent of learning. This comes from my book, The Brave Learner. So if you have this book, you can certainly go to this page number and take a look. But even if you don't, this is a very helpful construct for you as you think about how to design the school year. So the continent of learning is basically this idea that if you pick a subject and put it at the center of a page and draw a little shape around it, you can find all its adjacencies to the school subjects that you care about, all of them. For instance, if piano is at the center, we can talk about the history of the instrument, the biographies of composers, the genres of music, the origin of the instrument. We can look at historical context, the development of the piano, what happened in Western music and Eastern music. We might look at religion, Bach, fugues, Handel's Messiah, an organ versus a piano. We might look at styles of music, opera, bar music, pop, and rock. Maybe we're going to look at geography. Who invented the piano? Where? Yes, very much like a unit study. We can look at math, the composition, the time signature, the transposing, chord structure, number of keys. We can look at science, vibration, sound, physics, pedals. Beethoven was deaf. We might look at musical notation, reading music and sheet music as piano literature. Literally, you can put anything in the center and build out a continent of learning. What if we put video games there? We might look at art, storyboarding, computer programming. We might look at the sociology of the game, the demographics of who plays, what it means to be good, what skills kids develop around that game. We might look at the mathematics that that game employs to keep track of scores and life points. In other words, it doesn't matter what the topic is. Every subject is necessary to create everything under the sun. The computer or phone you are using right now to watch me has every subject as a component of what it took to create that computer or phone. We limit ourselves so much because we think that the abstract principles of math or spelling or literature are more important than the concrete relationship they have to something that exists in the universe that a child can use. Remember, real learning connotes use. Put your child's passion at the center of the continent and figure out how all the stuff you're using in subjects this year relate to it. Here's the transformational moment then. You're going to see schools, easy for me to say. You're going to see school subjects and passions. You're going to see them differently. And then you're going to stage the home to support how you see them. Let me give you an example. For instance, I would like you to value something that the Keynes call relaxed alertness. The Keynes, Renata and Jeffrey Kane, are brain researchers who write all about brain-based learning, natural learning. And here's what they say about relaxed alertness. We're going to start with these two images. Relaxed alertness is basically tireless learning. You're able to learn because you're not getting worn out. So I invite you to look at these two pictures. On the left is my daughter, Katrin, playing on the Wii. She's playing bowling. On the right is my son, Liam, playing chess. He was on a chess team in high school. Most of the time when I tell people that my son was on a chess team, they immediately admire me. How many of you are admiring me right now? In fact, you're thinking, gosh, Julie, how do I get my child to play chess? Anyone honest enough to admit that that came to you immediately? Now, how many of you, when I said, there's Katrin playing Wii bowling, said, oh, I admire Julie. I wish she could get my kid to get on the Wii and play bowling. How many of you are like, I wish I had a child who played Wii bowling? Anybody? I just want you to feel this contrast between prestige subjects and things that our kids love. We tend to undervalue what they value unless it falls in the category of a prestige subject. Some of those are Latin, violin, chess. Can you think of some others? Prestige subjects where when you tell people your kid is into it, harp, they're like, wow, you have a really cool kid. STEM, right? computer coding. Jacob, my son, who's into human rights. I mean, who can be against that? Literally no one, right? Meanwhile, we've got kids who are doing a lot of learning, teaching themselves the we, reading the Harry Potter books 13 times, learning to sew. And we're over here thinking those are just pastimes. Here's what relaxed alertness is. This state exists in a learner who feels competent and confident and is interested or intrinsically motivated. The best context to facilitate relaxed alertness is relationship, relationship, relationship. What I mean by that is relationship with self, relationship with the subject area, and relationship with a supportive, interested mentor. Think about that. Self, subject, and you. Your job is to facilitate relaxed alertness. Here's how gaming looks. If we think about it as modeling, learning, and thinking well, and I decided to include gaming because, hey, I'm not dumb. I know so many of you find it difficult to understand if gaming even counts as learning. Relaxed alertness implies high challenge, low threat. So anyone who's on a game, on a computer, first of all, is driving literally a car, an adult technology, right? And then they have the low threat. There's nobody who can do anything to them. They're not going to die. So they are fully engaged. They feel challenged, but they're not truly at risk. They are taking advantage of what the Keynes call thematic attractors. They feel personal power and direction because they are drawn to what they're learning about. This could be true for lacrosse. This could be true for gardening. This could be true for sewing. This could be true for learning another language. It doesn't matter what the thematic attractor is. It's what attracts your kids. Gamers explore, experiment, and explain the 3 keys to learning anything. According to current research, 7 to 10 hours of games per week lead to deep absorption, enjoyment, and healthy concentration compared with non-gamers. When you see deep absorption, enjoyment, and healthy concentration, get out of the way. Imagine your child learning calligraphy or how to make sculpey clay earrings, or wanting to learn how to ride a unicycle, or playing Monopoly over and over with their siblings, or learning to bake sourdough bread. These are learning experiences that teach your kids how to think well and how to learn for themselves. In gaming, emotional regulation occurs for kids in the same way going for a run or watching TV offers self-regulation to adults. I want you to notice what other activities create these conditions in your kids' lives. Just make notes when you see this sort of absorption, enjoyment, and concentration. Stick that item in your continent of learning and start building from it, because that means your kids are learning. You're going to want to foster curiosity. I recommend highly following a child's curiosity and your own. Both lead to great results. Foster juicy conversations and questions. Identify the storytellers when you're reading with your kids. In my book, Raising Critical Thinkers, we talk about naming the storyteller. In the true story of the 3 little pigs, John Sheska tells the story from the wolf's point of view and completely upends how we understand the 3 little pigs. When we're reading with our kids, this is a way that we develop their minds. We ask, on what basis do we trust a narrator? We ask ourselves, what do I hope will be true? Why am I nervous reading about this? Aha, there's a fact I need to win my argument. I wonder if I'll get in trouble for considering this idea. As we're raising our kids, then intimacy depends on paying attention to where their attention is and then inviting them to reflect on it through conversation and meaningful questions, which, to be fair, is all we do in Brave Writer. You could just define our company as 10,000 questions you could ask your children. You're going to want to collaborate with their dreams. When Jacob was young, he was a cookie entrepreneur to raise money to go to space camp because he thought he wanted to be an astronaut. He raised the money, he went to camp, and then he decided, nope, don't want to be an astronaut. Years later, he decided that he wanted to work for the UN. Here's what he learned while he was a cookie entrepreneur: how to raise money to do the things you want to do. So he applied for scholarships and got them, and eventually spent time as a loose scholar in Thailand. And today he has his dream job. He works for MINUSCA for the UN in Central African Republic. This is a straight line of his interests, even though it doesn't look like it. Here's an example of my oldest two kids who joined an adult dance company after reading Pride and Prejudice. My daughter had a big, hairy, audacious goal of learning how to dance the way they do in the Bingley's balls. And so we found a vintage dance troupe just for them. We had learning parties. I wanted my kids to learn poetry. I wanted them to not hate it. So I served tea. I set the table. We lit candles. And the next thing you know, my kids grew to adore poetry. Light, color, whimsy, intimacy, coziness, connection, and nourishment can support the learning of any school subject. Can you do this with math? Of course. Can you do it with history? Naturally. Can you do it with geography? Yes. Create an environment that invites the child to use their full body and senses, and they will be open to whatever subject area you hope they'll learn. Here are some examples of other parties that we did when I homeschooled. We did a gold rush party with friends, a medieval night party, and finally, Katrin and her little friend Sarah had a Japanese tea party after we spent a unit studying Japan. I see someone saying, please bring out Brave Writer Maths. We did. The quill this year includes math for the first time for 5 to 7-year-olds. So if that goes well, we'll see it coming at the other levels. And then lastly, go places. Get out of the house and into the world. We went to Italy, art museums, took walks even when it was totally snowy. You don't have to go far away, but give your kids the whole world to experience. When you bring education home, you're going to read with them, you're going to give them experiences, and you're going to allow them to encounter directly firsthand what it is they need in order to become educated and to grow. I have a really great example of this here. When Katrin was getting ready for college, first we read about it, right? Then we did a college visit where she experienced it as an outsider. And then finally, she had the full-blown encounter by moving to college and living in a dorm and actually experiencing it firsthand. Whenever we're teaching our kids and helping them learn, we want all three pieces. So in our products, there's a reading component, like reading a novel every month. There's an experience component, practicing, learning how to use the pencil. And then there's an encounter. We have book club party ideas. We have great questions for conversation. We have suggested activities that use the body. The best education then facilitates a diversity of answers, relaxed alertness, reading, experiencing, and encountering. The Brave Learner, which this book is like sold like wildfire, over 70,000 copies. You can buy it, and there is a free companion guide at thebravelearner.com. I'm holding up a copy of it in that picture back when I didn't have gray hair yet. And then my new book, Raising Critical Thinkers, which is hardback, has a free book club guide when you go to raisingcriticalthinkers.com. So I'm back now, and I'm happy to take some questions. We ran over time a little bit just because there's a lot to cover. But thank you so much for being here. You will only remember one thing from today. It's been shown in research that when we open ourselves to a lot of information, there will be one thing, maybe two at the most, that hook into your soul, and that's enough. Chase that thing. get to know it, find solutions for it, follow the muse. I circle over this information thousands of times on Instagram, in my books, in the Brave Learner home. It's all going to be there for you. Watch the replay, take notes if you like. Oh, somebody's asking me what my children say about their home education. I've done interviews with Noah and Johanna, and I've spoken constantly about the other kids. So they loved the family dynamic. Like, they are so tight as a five-some. And they all see home education as having made them devalue the role of grades and more importantly, value self-teaching and learning. My oldest son, Noah, never liked any version of school except homeschool. And then the others have all done some public, some mostly homeschool. And yeah, the verdict is that it was successful and did well. How do you feel like you are accomplishing anything academic with any one child when all three are very different? Okay, so a couple of ideas. If you need to rotate through children, and who doesn't, park the ones you're not teaching in front of video games or TV. Not kidding. Why would you allow them to distract you when you're giving dedicated time to someone? Let them be invested in what they're doing. They do not need to be wandering nomads in your house just for the sake of your Puritan views about television and video games. Give devoted attention and allow the kids who are not a part of that devoted attention to do something they find deeply pleasurable. So they'll leave you alone and then take the same special time with them. The big question then is, if we want to put our child's passions in the center of the learning continent, how do we manage multiple children with different passions? You rotate. I had 5 kids. We couldn't do 5 sports at a time. I would give dedicated attention to one child's passion. Like when we did vintage dance, that really dominated. Then when Katrin really got into sewing, that dominated. You rotate. Keep notes on your scatter book or on your journal or planner, and let your kids know this is the season where I'm all in with you. And this other kid can be working on their own and maybe taking a class or doing an online tutorial, but you rotate and you don't feel guilty about it. Because here's what I know. If you don't rotate, no one gets any of you. You just live in the land of paralysis. Like, I can't do anything, so I'm doing nothing. Do a little with one and then do a little with the next one, just like that. Do you have a planner you recommend? We have an intuitive homeschool planning tool that I highly recommend. Maybe someone can pop the link into the chat. That tool helps you walk through a process that will help you have the result that I've been talking about today. It is so valuable. If you buy our bundles, or any of our products actually, you can get them printed through the Homeschool Printing Company. We have a link that is directly for Brave Writer program, and they do it really cheap and then move you to the front of the line. How do I teach 3 kids 4 years apart, 5, 9, and 13? Again, you could do like the 13-year-old by himself or herself in the afternoons and the 5 and 9 in the morning. The 5-year-old hardly needs anything. Just make sure you read aloud to them and play blocks with them. The 9 and 13 can be together for read alouds. You can certainly teach commas to 9-year-olds and 13-year-olds at the same time. There's no reason to do grade level work there. Keep them as a family as much as possible. Remember, I had 5 kids at one point under 9. I did it. So everything I've built is with that in mind. I purchased Writer's Jungle last November and haven't used it, trying to decide if I should purchase Growing Brave Writers. There is a webinar I gave that talks about the differences. Maybe someone can pop that in, but if it doesn't get popped in the chat, simply send us a message, help@bravewriter.com, and we'll send it to you. There will be a link to the planning webinar after I give it inside Brave Learner Home. What would qualify as a high school level English class? Oh, great question. Help for High School is half a credit, and the boomerangs are the other half. So you would have a year credit for English if you do Help for High School and the boomerangs together. That will do it. That will cover you for a year. Okay, I think we've done it. We've made it all the way. It's been an hour, so I'm going to let you all go. Thank you for joining us for summer camp. I hope that you've learned everything you need. Thanks again, everybody. Woohoo! We never even did. Oh, we should end with some confetti. I never did it. Woo! Yay. Thank you everyone for being here. Bye.